They branded me the disappointment. In the Harrington family, success wasn't just expected, it was demanded. My father, Charles, was a man who believed weakness was shameful. My mother, Evelyn, followed his lead, shaping every conversation around achievement, reputation, and appearances. And then there was my brother, Adrian, the golden child. Perfect grades, captain of every team, scholarships to the best schools. He was their trophy, their living proof that the Harrington name meant greatness. And me, I was John, the one who was trying, the one who never measured up. When I was 12, I overheard my mother talking to a neighbor in the garden. "Adrian's our future," she said proudly, her voice bright with pride. "John, John does his best," she laughed politely, as if that line excused everything. Those words burned into me. From then on, I carried them like a brand across my skin. Family dinners were always the same ritual. The polished oak dining table gleaming under the chandelier, my father at the head, Adrian basking in their admiration. Every conversation revolved around his achievements, new medals, glowing teacher reports, offers from prestigious summer programs. Evelyn would nod at every detail, her face practically glowing. When I tried to share something of my own, it was brushed aside. At 14, I told them I'd won first place in a school art contest. My father barely looked up from his glass of wine. "Art is a hobby, John," he said. "Adrian's focusing on strategy, on things that matter." The table erupted in laughter at some joke Adrian cracked, leaving my words hanging, forgotten. That night, I stopped mentioning my wins. Why bother? By 16, I was bussing tables at a small cafe to save up for my own future. Every paycheck meant independence. One evening, as I was leaving for my shift, Adrian spotted me in my stained apron. He was sprawled across the living room couch, sipping soda like a king. "Careful, John," he smirked. "Don't let the grease ruin our reputation." My father chuckled. My mother smiled faintly. No one defended me. I slipped out, the door closing softly behind me, but it felt like it slammed against my chest. The only place I felt seen was at my Aunt Margaret's cabin by the lake. She wasn't like the rest of them. She had built her own business empire from nothing, a multi-million-dollar company that started in her garage. But unlike my parents, she never measured people by their accomplishments. Margaret noticed my sketches, asked questions about my ideas, actually listened. One dusk, as the sun sank over the lake, she put her hand on my shoulder. "John," she said, her voice steady, "their scorn doesn't define you. I see something in you they don't, a spark they can't comprehend. When the time comes, you'll surprise them all." Her words stayed with me, not as comfort, but as a challenge. By the time Adrian's graduation rolled around, the Harringtons staged it like a royal coronation. A gala in a towering glass hotel overlooking the city. Guests in tailored suits, jazz humming under the chandeliers. My parents glided through the room like celebrities, bragging about Adrian's acceptance into Harvard. I wore Adrian's old blazer. It hung on me awkwardly, sleeves too long. I was placed at a corner table, nearly hidden behind a giant floral arrangement. When Adrian crossed the stage to receive his award, my father clapped with thunderous pride, my mother dabbing tears from her eyes. I joined in too, but each clap felt heavier than the last. As the night wore on, my father raised his glass. "Tonight we honor Adrian Harrington," he declared, "the heir to our family's name and legacy. He'll carry forward everything I've built." The crowd erupted in cheers. Glasses clinked. Adrian stood tall, grinning, untouchable, and I shrank deeper into the shadows. But then something unexpected happened. A man in a gray suit approached my table, his eyes sharp, his expression unreadable. He placed a sealed envelope in front of me and whispered, "It's time to learn the truth." Before I could ask who he was, he vanished into the crowd. I stared at the envelope, my pulse pounding. It felt heavier than paper had any right to. My hands trembled as I slipped it inside my blazer, hiding it from view. For the first time that night, I felt like something was shifting. something big. The gala swirled around me, champagne glasses clinking, laughter echoing, Adrian basking in his endless praise, but I couldn't focus on any of it. All I could feel was the weight of the envelope hidden inside my blazer. I slipped away from the main hall and found a quiet corridor near the restrooms. My hands shook as I tore the seal. Inside were legal documents. Real ones. Notarized, stamped, official. My eyes darted across the words, my breath catching. Last Will and Testament of Margaret Harrington. I blinked hard, reading again. My aunt's name? Margaret. And then the bombshell. She had named me, John Harrington, as the sole heir to her entire company, her estate, even her hidden accounts. Not Adrian, not my parents. Me dough tucked in with the papers was a handwritten note in Margaret's elegant script. John, I leave this legacy to you, not because of what the world sees, but because of what I've always seen in you. You lead with empathy where others lead with ego. Do not let their voices silence you. This is your time. My breath hitched. She had chosen me. She had believed in me all along. But why reveal it now? I slipped the papers back into the envelope, heart hammering. Back in the ballroom, my father was giving yet another speech about Adrian's future. My mother stood proudly beside him, her face radiant with admiration. Adrian was shaking hands with powerful men, soaking in the attention like he was born for it. I sat frozen at my table, the envelope heavy in my lap. A storm raged inside me. Should I tell them? Should I challenge everything they believed tonight, here, in front of their world? As the jazz band struck up another song, I noticed Adrian making his way toward me. He leaned down, smirking, his voice dripping with condescension. Try not to embarrass yourself, little brother. This is my night. Don't ruin it by pretending you matter. He walked away before I could respond, leaving me seething. For years I'd stayed silent, swallowed the insults, lived in the shadows. But now I held proof that their perfect narrative was a lie. Proof that I wasn't just trying. Proof that someone who mattered had seen my worth. And yet, fear clawed at me. If I revealed the truth, my family would hate me even more. I'd be painted as a usurper, a fraud. Adrian would never forgive me. My parents would disown me. But staying quiet meant letting them keep crushing me under their heel. I thought of Aunt Margaret's words at the lake. When it's time, you'll surprise them all. Maybe this was that time. The evening dragged on, toasts and speeches blending together. Every clap for Adrian felt like a nail hammering into me. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. My legs moved before my brain caught up. I walked toward the stage. Gasps rippled through the room as I stepped into the spotlight. My father's eyes narrowed, his jaw tightening. John, he said sharply. Not now. Adrian smirked, confident I would back down like always. But I didn't. I raised the envelope high. My voice, though shaking, carried across the hall. This celebration is built on a lie. Aunt Margaret didn't choose you, Adrian. She chose me. I am the heir to her company, her estate, everything she built. Not you. The room fell silent. Forks froze midair. Wine glasses hovered. Adrian's grin faltered. My mother's face drained of color. My father let out a harsh laugh, his voice echoing off the marble walls. Don't be ridiculous. Margaret would never choose you over Adrian. And then, cutting through the tension like a blade, came a voice from the back of the hall. Strong, unshaken. I did. Heads whipped around. There, standing tall and unyielding, was Aunt Margaret herself. Her silver hair shimmered under the lights, her presence commanding the entire room without effort. She stepped forward, her eyes sweeping over the stunned crowd before landing on me. I chose John, because he has what this family has forgotten. Heart. He will carry my legacy forward, not with arrogance, but with strength rooted in empathy. A murmur rippled through the guests. Some applauded softly, others whispered in shock. Adrian's face twisted with disbelief. This is insane. I'm the one who's worked for this. I've earned it. Margaret's gaze was steel. No, Adrian, you chased glory. John builds for others. That is the difference. Applause broke out, swelling louder and louder. My father's face darkened. My mother looked as though the ground had been pulled from beneath her. Adrian glared at me, his perfect world fracturing. For the first time in my life, I wasn't invisible. I was seen. The applause rang in my ears, sharp and surreal. For years, I'd been nothing but background noise in my family's story. And now, all at once, I was center stage. My father stormed forward, his face flushed red. Enough of this nonsense, he barked, snatching the envelope from my hands. He flipped through the pages, his eyes darting across Margaret's notarized signature. His mouth pressed into a thin line. It doesn't matter, he spat finally, his voice cracking with fury. This is madness. My son Adrian is the rightful heir. Everyone here knows it. Margaret's voice cut through his, like steel. It does matter, Charles. You built your empire by crushing anyone who didn't fit your image of power. But this company was mine before you married into the Harrington name, and I will decide who carries it forward. John is my choice. Gasps echoed around the hall again. My father froze. The crowd shifted, some whispering, some applauding. Adrian looked like he might explode. You're making a mistake, Adrian hissed, stepping closer to Margaret. His face was pale, his jaw clenched. He's weak, he's nothing. He'll ruin everything you've built. I felt the familiar sting of his words, the old instinct to shrink back. But then I caught Margaret's steady gaze, grounding me. For once, I didn't look away. He's stronger than you realize, Margaret said firmly, because his strength doesn't come from tearing others down. The tension in the room was unbearable. My father threw the envelope down onto the table and grabbed my arm, yanking me aside. What game are you playing, John? He growled in a low voice only I could hear. You think this makes you someone? You'll embarrass us all. You're not cut out for this. You never were. For years, those words would have crushed me. But this time, something inside me shifted. I pulled my arm free. Maybe you never noticed. But I was cut out for more than being your shadow. And Margaret saw it before you ever did. He froze, his hand still hanging in the air where it had gripped me. For the first time, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Not anger, not pride, but doubt. Adrian, desperate to regain control, jumped back onto the stage, his voice raised. This is ridiculous. I've been preparing my whole life for this company. Everyone knows me. Everyone respects me. John's nothing more than a waiter in a cafe. The words echoed, meant to humiliate me, but instead of laughter, a hush spread across the crowd. People were watching him, not with admiration, but with unease. Margaret stepped onto the stage beside him. Arrogance doesn't make a leader. Heart does. And tonight I think everyone here has seen the difference. Applause thundered again, this time louder, more certain. Adrian's face twisted. My father stood rigid, fury radiating off him. My mother's hands trembled at her sides. And me? I felt something I'd never felt before in their presence. Power. But that power came with a cost. I knew what was coming. My father would fight this with everything he had. Adrian wouldn't forgive me. My mother would never look at me the same way again. Still, I stood tall as Margaret raised my hand like I'd won a championship. The crowd erupted in cheers. For the first time in my life, I wasn't John the disappointment. I wasn't the afterthought. I was John Harrington, the heir. If you've stuck with me this far, take a moment right now. Hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. It helps more people hear stories like this one. And trust me, the best part of this journey is still ahead. The night of the gala changed everything. In the days that followed, the Harrington household felt like a battlefield. My father barely spoke to me. My mother avoided eye contact. Adrian stormed in and out, slamming doors, muttering curses under his breath. But Margaret, she stood firm. The paperwork was airtight. The company was mine. One morning, I walked into the family study to find my father waiting. His face was grim, his jaw set. He didn't look at me as he spoke. You've humiliated this family, he said. If you think I'll sit by while you destroy everything I've built, you're mistaken. I'll fight this in court until the day I die. I took a deep breath. My heart pounded, but my voice stayed steady. You can fight me, Dad, but the more you do, the more you prove Margaret was right. This was never about the company for you. It was about control. His head snapped toward me, his eyes blazing. But for once, I didn't flinch. That night, Adrian barged into my room. His face was red, his fists clenched. You think you've won, don't you? He snarled. You think being handed everything makes you better than me? I stood slowly. No, I don't think I'm better. I just think you spent so long being told you were the best that you don't know how to live without it. He lunged at me then, his fist connecting with my jaw. Pain exploded across my face, but I didn't fight back. I just looked at him, blood on my lip, and whispered, "This is who you really are." He froze. For a moment I saw it. The crack in his armor, the doubt creeping in. He left without another word. Weeks passed. The company board, swayed by Margaret's presence and the legal documents, recognized me as the rightful heir. I stepped into an office I'd once only seen from afar. The leather chair, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. They were mine now. But with it came responsibility. Meetings. Decisions. People looking to me for answers. It was overwhelming. Some days I felt like I was drowning. But then I'd remember Margaret's words. You lead with empathy where others lead with ego. And slowly, I began to believe I could do it. The true twist, though, came months later. Margaret called me to her cabin, the same lakeside porch where she'd first told me I had a spark. She handed me a worn leather journal. This, she said softly, was your grandfather's. He built his fortune not for Charles, not for Adrian, but for someone like you, someone who understood that wealth is a tool, not a crown. I knew from the moment you sat here sketching by the water that you were the one to carry this forward. I opened the journal. Inside were notes, blueprints, visions for projects that would help communities, fund education, provide jobs. Not just profit, purpose. Tears blurred my vision. For the first time, I saw the bigger picture. It wasn't just about proving my parents wrong. It was about proving Margaret and my grandfather right. The Harrington Empire wasn't meant for Adrian's arrogance or my father's pride. It was meant for me, that night, standing on the porch with the journal in my hands. I felt the weight of all the years I'd been ignored, belittled, forgotten, and I let them fall away. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was John Harrington, and this time, I wasn't just the heir. I was the future. With that said, thanks for watching. Until next time, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this.